Chevron 1, encoded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your hunt. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2, encoded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Well, I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi, and all that killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3, encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4, encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5, encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6, encoded.
Laugh while you can, little boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an owl.
What about side by side with a friend?
The day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Give me the meat and give it to me raw.
What's the matter? Take yourself a great big bite of meat. Taste the pleasure of the highest quality pork around.
We normally don't open with that, but Jed requested it because, as you can see, we have a guest today. Another member of the G&G team, Krista Novva. Welcome, Krista Novva, to
Hi, thank you.
Saturday Night Drive-In, where we take a break from the week and enjoy something fun. Yes, all right.
That's from Food Wars, I think, which
yes, it is.
A lot of people suggested that to me, but just because I love food and I love to cook, but it's definitely not up my alley, as you can imagine why.
It is heavy on the fan service.
Yeah, I'd rather watch Dragon Ball Z, where I see big, strong men, battle with each other. But yeah,
I that was Jed told me to do this, and
I know.
Yeah,
it's not my fault.
I had no idea.
I won't blame you. It's fine.
Together, I thought I'd never seen them all together before.
Oh, you've never seen the full one? Oh yeah, I made that one a while ago just because I was trying to increase lead time for whatever reason. Whatever. Anyway, again, welcome everybody. We are here as always. We're gonna have some fun today. Welcome, Jed. It has actually been a while since I've seen you, since we had our big fight last weekend.
Well, we saw each other on Sunday too.
Oh, we did, didn't we?
Yeah,
I've been sick. Leave me alone.
But yes, it has been a week since our big fight, and we haven't broken up. We are still together. I know it's crazy that we disagree, but it's great to be here talking about a good 80s comedy, an actually good one. I'm really excited to talk about it. I've been planning on doing this movie for months now on this show.
Oh, okay.
But when I finally watched it again this morning, I knew it was the right choice because I was just grinning the whole time. I had so much nostalgia rewatching it. I adore this film, and I'm glad we finally get to talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's been a very long time since I'd seen it. I watched it yesterday. It's been a long time, and I'll get into it. And of course, Krista, welcome. Happy to have you here.
Thank you.
When did you first see the Goonies?
I first saw the Goonies. Gosh, it could have been about maybe 8 years old. Really young. My sister was really into it as well. She's older than me, and so She loved the movie, and of course, when you're the younger sister, you follow what the big sister does. So I watched it really young, and I had it on VHS. I mean, it's crazy
Well,
that.
then
Oh,
you
sorry.
might have seen. No, no. I'm sorry. We don't have a rhythm here. Sorry, first time streaming together. No. You might have seen it with the octopus scene in there. Then did you? Have you?
I don't remember that, but I do remember
Mm,
Jay, because Jay is a big time Goonies fan. He
mm,
told me about that, and I had no idea. The VHS version that I had did not have the octopus in it, because I do
okay.
not remember that at all. But it was an ongoing thing where I used to always rewatch the movies that we had, because VHS or whatever you rent at Blockbuster. But I owned the Goonies on VHS, and so it was a constant rewatch when I was a kid. So I think the last time I saw it, the very last time, was probably a year and a half ago. I rewatched it.
That's
Yeah.
definitely sooner than I'd last seen it.
Yeah.
There's double digits the last time I watched the Goonies, just because as the old man here, I was there when it was in theaters. I watched it. It was a part of my childhood. It was a part of the comedy my friends and I used for years on end in school, and I'll talk more about that as we get into it. So I watched it a lot. As you did, Chris, because I watched it a lot as a kid. I saw it in the theater, and as I said, I saw it in the theater. So I saw the octopus scene
Oh, wow.
in the theater,
Okay.
and I saw versions of it on VHS and on TV where they still had the octopus. Now on the Blu-ray, at least the version I got yesterday, octopus scene gone.
Yeah. I didn't even know the octopus scene was real. I figured they were all just messing around at the end of the movie when they were talking about the octopus, the news reporters. I didn't know there was an actual scene. And I looked at the VHS version too, and it wasn't there.
And it's an important scene because because not just the octopus part that you can actually put out, but the follow-up part where Sloth and Chunk are heading to the final stage of where the ship is. Chunk yells, "Hey, you guys," and that's where Sloth gets, "Hey, you guys."
That makes sense.
It links to that, and so you miss that little bit, and but that's the thing. One of the things I will want to talk about tonight is Goonies has had a lasting cultural impact on the zeitgeist of pop culture, and it's because a lot of these lines. Before that, let us say hail and howdy to the chat. Hail to you, good Algrim the Strong. As always, good to hear. I'm sick. Leave me alone. Good to see you here, my friend. Goddess Legionist, along with Mustang, if he is watching somewhere, one of my mods and my regulars, and they're the only ones talking. And if anybody else is watching now or on the replay, we hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Okay, so 1985. The world is young. I was young. We're in the middle of the Cold War, and they wanted to put out movies, I think, that would take your mind off of stuff, because this is times are tense. We don't know what's going to happen. And I threw it out, didn't it? Damn it. I had a screen cap I was going to put up and I deleted it. Damn it. All right. Anyway, they wanted to do stuff, and you had this is the beginning of some of the most famous directors and producers, and I say that very carefully with this of where these people took off. And here's a very interesting thing. So this movie produced and written by Steven Spielberg.
Yep.
But directed by Richard Donner.
Oh, that man is underrated these days.
I mean, yeah, I think, and Jed, we talked about this when we were doing Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's what I call the Spielberg fatal flaw, where he usually takes it one step too far. It's not in this movie. He may have written it, but Donner's direction, I think, kept it from them, because there could have been all kinds of problems when they're with the skeletons or did things, and he kept it at that level. Yeah. So it's good. So you got Spielberg writing and producing. Spielberg, decent writer with this, and you've got Donner directing, and unfortunately Frank Marshall and KK producing.
Oh yeah, KK was inseparable with Frank. With Spielberg for the longest time. Couldn't get a Spielberg movie without her.
Yep. And well, she was the best coffee fetcher in the world. So Jed, why don't you set us up with this? This was your choice this week. Why don't you set us up with the Goonies?
So yeah, the Goonies is a very simple story when you look at it. a bunch of kids growing up in the same neighborhood that's getting bought out by some big corporation, and they're being forced to leave because of this. And they decide on their last day together as friends, their last day in this neighborhood, they're going to go after the legendary treasure that has been a cultural thing in the Boondocks where they're at, of missing treasure from a pirate named One-Eyed Willie. So they go on this adventure trying to find the treasure to save their town. And if nothing else, just enjoy their last hours together and make it memorable. And so it's just a simple story about kids having some fun, having some adventures, while some criminals chase them who are also interested in the treasure and are worried about the kids spilling the beans on the criminals' hideout
activities. Yeah.
And I gotta say, I love the criminals. I can't ever pronounce their names.
The Fratellis.
The Fratellis. They're just so much fun to watch. All four of them, even Sloth. And as a kid, every time I watched the movie, I'd make a different opinion on whether or not the actor playing the mom was a man or a woman. It confused me so much.
I don't remember her name.
But it's very progressive to have a potential trans character in an 80s movie.
She's a little old woman.
Let me get her name real quick.
She was perfect for it. All of them. And the Agent Johnson from Die Hard was one of the brothers. And
you had everybody. Yeah, I mean, that's Bob Davi. We love Bob Davi. Robert Davi's great. I mean, we'll go over the cast in a second. You have to realize the cast at the young age. Robert Davi, Anne Ramsey. Anne Ramsey as Ma Fratelli. She was famous in the 80s for playing ugly old lady. That was her shtick. Yeah, I mean, there's the classic Danny DeVito, Billy Crystal movie, Throw Mama from the Train, where she's Mama. They try to kill her through the whole movie. It's terrible. Awesome. But the cast. Let's go in the cast and the characters. I mean, Thanos is in this.
Yes.
We got Samwise. Now short round was still short round back then. Yep. but and they got Bob Davi. You got a lot of people who would go on to have major careers in Hollywood, or at least normal careers in Hollywood. It's really just at the time, I would say a little bit nepotism. I mean, let's be honest. Sean Astin was Patty Duke's kid, so he was going to easily get any job he wanted. But anyway, it still doesn't change the fact that they all did a great job.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I wouldn't say even a single person was miscast.
Not miscast.
No. I don't love what's her bucket, the short-haired friend.
She's
good at what she's
doing.
Yeah,
but doesn't stand out amongst the rest of the stellar cast. And Mouth is my favorite, though, personal favorite.
Yeah.
Especially with Kenzo talking about when he's mistranslating to Rosita. That was my favorite movie in the movie growing up. You gotta always separate the drugs.
He's just Mouth. So, all right, let's talk about the characters. Krista, who's your favorite character in this one?
It goes back between Mouth or Chunk because they're both just equally funny. I mean, all the characters are great, but if I had to pick one, probably Mouth.
Now this is young Corey Feldman, one of his earliest movies, and we know Corey's a Corey, goes on career. He nails it.
Yes.
And I mean, he totally leans into just being an obnoxious little asshole the entire time. And one of my favorite moments with Mouth is when they're in the Fratelli diner, and he starts to backtalk Ma Fratelli, ordering what he wants.
Yeah.
And again, this scene is stuck with me for all these years, when she grabs his face, talking about, we only serve tongue and squeeze them, and out comes the tongue. And it's just, and I just remember going, yeah. And I love it. And he can, and you know what? And what we like to talk about character development. Everybody goes through somewhat in this short amount, this hour, 53-minute movie. They go through a decent amount of character development and plot development. Part of this. Yep. Mouth, obnoxious, annoying, but gets taken down a peg here and there and is not so mouthy by the end.
Yeah, he learns to be a little bit vulnerable because that seems to be what his the mouthiness is, a defense mechanism. And so in the final scene of the movie on the beach, when he's talking to the chick he seems to have a crush on, he's vulnerable with her. And that's not something I don't think he would have done at the beginning of the movie. Definitely a neat little arc.
And you know where it starts? It starts in the wishing well. This was my dream. And it didn't come true. And I'm taking them all back. And you know what? And that's the desperation of where they are at that point, because they're halfway through this adventure. They have they're being chased from a trail, and
Got
here they
farther
think
than anybody else, though.
yeah, and they think they found something that can save their homes, and some would say he's being greedy, taking stuff, but no, I see it as the desperation. He wants it. He's sad. He doesn't want to lose his friend. Doesn't want to lose his home. He's going to take that stuff, and then it takes the conversation of these are people's dreams, which again is it's surprisingly powerful monologues in this movie. Powerful.
And I think the speech that Mikey has in this scene is very underrated for a lot of people, because I know several people who said they love the movie, but they find that speech cheesy and takes them right out of it.
I can see that. That was one of my next comments.
I disagree with it because, again, he is a child. So he's appealing to the childlike nature in all of them. So it's not all that sophisticated, but it's portrayed in such a way that fits his character, fits what's going on, and it gets across to the audience what needs to be gotten across. So I think it's the perfect monologue for the scene. It may come off as cheesy, but I think his age is something that we can't forget in this moment. Because I always get ready to fight when I, like, as a kid, I'd hear that speech. Is like, yeah, let's kick some Italian ass. Sorry,
for
Krista.
me, she said
no.
Oh, okay. No, here's the thing about Mikey. When I was a kid, Mikey was my favorite because he's the pseudo leader, and I always like the leaders in these things. But watching it as an adult now, while his speeches are heartfelt and genuine, sometimes for me now, when I watch it, I felt there was a little bit of cringe in a little bit of it. Looking at it as an adult, I feel it now, but it's still, even though there's a little cringe there, there's still the heart, and it comes through as genuine, which makes it still land. And I'm not I'm just going like this, but I'm not rolling my eyes. So it's not I hate you cringe. It's just okay. Let me check cheese. I'll go with a little bit of cheese in there.
Yeah,
it's all right. I have to say though, in the end, I kind of think Chunk is the star out of all of it. And you gotta remember, I was a chunky kid, and I got the chunk jokes thrown at me all the time. It's like, do the truffle shuffle. Come on, do the truffle shuffle. I never did it. I did not give in. Although we're gonna make Jeremy do the truffle shuffle now. We decided that last night.
We're gonna do it. You got him to call you daddy, so you can get him to do anything now.
Yeah, you got the big daddy. We are not talking ballbusters degeneracy on this show. We are not going to do that.
18 degrees, baby.
Oh God, no. Krista is an innocent.
Later, Krista.
No, do not ruin her innocence. Do not. I mean, I know she's in the G&G house and she's probably heard things she can never forget.
Yeah,
but that's a whole new level of wrong. Don't tell her about that. Anyway, you have to excuse me if I cough for a moment here. But the Chunk stuff, I realized watching Chunk is the one that gets the most done in terms of saving people, I feel like, or coming through in the end, because he's the one that he's the one that befriends Sloth, even though it's kind of weird how he befriends Sloth.
Accidental at first.
Accidental. Although that, like I'm going to talk about this later, that generates humor that has lasted for years. When I was a kid, it lasted for years. But Chunk, he delivers. I don't know how to put this right. He delivers the reality of the situation. If that makes any sense? He's the one that's grounded because he says, "Let's go home. This is dangerous."
Reason.
Yeah, and even though he is the butt of every goddamn joke in this movie.
It's wonderful. I love how he's like with the dead body and he keeps getting distracted by the exit.
Now, there's only one thing though. How do you smell ice cream? I smell ice cream.
I guess if there's enough of it, you can, right? Like, I mean, there was a lot of it, so maybe I don't know. Maybe he just knows the smell of ice cream.
Thing is, having worked in a professional kitchen, that's back then. That's a professional grade freezer that's pretty sealed, and all the containers were sealed. That one's jumped out at me yesterday. How do you smell ice cream?
Did you see the outside of the fridge though? It doesn't seem like it might be a professional fridge, but it hasn't been in professional care.
So I mean, I don't know. Like that just jumped out at me yesterday. Smell ice cream, as it didn't make that for the first time ever hit me. I was like, I just smell ice cream.
It was rotting ice cream, maybe, because it was just a downstairs for like them to put bodies and stuff. It wasn't an actual restaurant, so maybe they need to cover up the smell with something sweet. I don't know. And that's how he smelled something sweet.
That would.
Oh, excuse me. I guess that's good headcanoning of that. I like that. But I do love that scene though. It's a stiff. That brings up something. This movie is very 80s with catchphrases and the reusing of stuff. I mean, one of the things that they reuse jokes over and over again in the movie. Jerk alert, stiff, and a bunch of other things. But it's 80s.
Even
so
just
like
the nicknames for one another, right? Like you don't really hear people calling each other like, "Oh, he's mouthy. Let's call him Mouth." You know, like that's really uncommon. But in the 80s, it was a really big thing where it's like,
you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
That's how people nicknames were a thing, and now we're all on YouTube, and if we don't have if we're not giving out our first name or a version of our first name, we refer to each other as our handles. Those counts as nicknames, but that's kind of the culture of YouTube. But you bring up a great point. That was the culture of the 80s. No, you call someone a nickname. Mikey's nickname is Mike. Michael. Yeah, take over for a second.
It's been a long day. But yeah, the culture is one of the things that always appealed to me because even growing up, I adored 80s culture. Their films, their television, I think is pretty peak. That's a decade that I say was consistently the greatest in my personal opinion. I know a lot of people who may disagree, but I've always been drawn to the 80s and seeing it portrayed in this way, especially from such a young perspective, it drew me into the decade in a way that nothing else really has. And I think it single-handedly inspired things like Stranger Things because Stranger Things much from the Goonies, from just a bunch of 12-year-old boys on bicycles. I know that's a simple thing, and the bicycle thing is an important aspect of the film and of the decade. Children use bicycles a lot during that period. And yeah, Stranger Things, you can't escape how much inspiration they draw from the Goonies. And I think it's fantastic because it is a film that people should be looking back on fondly and getting inspiration from for years because Stranger Things only keeps Goonies in the general zeitgeist for longer, introduces newer generations to it, and keeps it alive. So I'm very happy about how Stranger Things draw that inspiration from Goonies because everyone needs to see it. Everyone needs to see this movie.
I mean, there are other things in there. You mentioned the bike riding. That's if you lived in an enclosed neighborhood, you could do that. You didn't have to worry about cars. There were back roads. Now, I didn't realize this till I watched yesterday because I was asking myself a question. Where is Astoria? I didn't realize it's in freaking Oregon. This takes place in Oregon.
Really?
Yes.
I figured it was like Massachusetts. I always thought it was New England.
So did I. And this is, again, paying attention as an adult, having not watched it for a long time. And, of course, as Jed and I always say, we're watching this for the critique eye this time around. Makes you catch things. And I was specifically thinking, where is this? Because I was thinking, if the British Navy in the 1600s were chasing One-Eyed Willie, good God damn, he got far away. All the way to Oregon. No wonder they never found his ass.
I just got to say, I love how you pronounce Oregon.
Oregon. Well, all right, dude. When I was a kid, there was Oregon Trail. And that's how everybody said Oregon Trail. So it's in my head, Oregon Trail, not Oregon. Oregon.
Ingrained in you.
It's
yeah, there's not a whole lot of pirate lore that I'm familiar with from Portland.
Yeah. So that really got to me. I was like, wow, okay. And I'm just thinking, it adds a certain level of extra fantasy to it when you realize that a pirate ship, and remember, piracy back in the day, yes, it was in the Atlantic, in the Caribbean, and could get over to Asia, but then you got to keep going to get all the way to, or I guess you could go around.
Well,
South America, maybe.
At that point, there was the Cape of Good Hope.
I guess. I don't know.
No, that's South Africa.
Yeah, either way. I mean, either way,
you had to go over the two capes at the southern Africa, South America.
It still blew my mind that this takes place in Oregon. Maybe it makes sense because it was raining there, so it should have been a tip off to me. But all right, so again, mouth hits it as Corey Feldman hits the mouth. Chunk nails it as the unsung hero of this because he saves the day. And again,
absolutely. They all lose at the end if he hadn't befriended.
Oh yeah, and again, I love his entrance. Chunk, it's you. No, Captain Chunk.
Just like that moment, just a moment later, I feel like Sloth was imitating Mike or Chunk there when he rips off his shirt and it's a Superman shirt.
Yeah.
And his brothers are like, "Oh, we're in deep shit now."
Well, that's still playing on the popularity of Christopher Reeve's Superman in that time, because he's still super popular for that. So, and they even played the Superman theme.
Yeah,
Richard Donner,
and it's just you realize. Again, we mentioned it. It's very 80s. It's filled with so many 80s references to stuff in terms of one of the Pepsi's all over the place.
Oh yeah,
in this movie,
the product placement isn't subtle.
It's not subtle.
At the beginning of the movie.
At the very end, when the family Chunk is part of the family, his mom's running over with a freaking Domino's pizza.
Yeah, that was so funny. It's just little things like that where it's like it makes a movie so great. Because it's like the little things that makes it so funny. I love that part.
It's good cheesy. It's good cheesy.
Pepperoni. Yeah.
I love it. Oh, the one that gets me, Chunk is really eating throughout this entire movie.
Oh yeah.
And there's only one little plot hole I wonder. When he's starving for food at one point, he had the Baby Ruth in his pocket the whole time that he gives to Sloth.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like the type of guy who will have that for more than 2 seconds.
Yeah, that Baby Ruth is gone. When he was at it, when they were hungry getting to for Telly's diner, that Baby Ruth is coming out immediately. Come on.
Maybe you forgot about it. He doesn't seem like the most present individual.
No. And I do love Chunk's things. Whenever you need something to break, it's, hey, Chunk, let's just use Chunk's clumsiness. Hey, Chunk, hold this. And
my favorite one was when Mouth tricks him into breaking down the door. It's like, I got pictures of your mom in the bathtub.
So cheap.
And that's Mouth, and that was great.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about
so strong and distinct. Everyone feels individual.
Oh,
and that's
they're real characters.
Yeah, modern writers can't figure that out, is how to make people feel.
Yeah.
I mean, and if in this period, again, we are only a couple years away from Temple of Doom, and Ki Yu Hung now is Data Short Round. You don't see Short Round in there. Data is, even though he sounds the same because he's the same guy and he has the same accent at that time of his life, Data is a unique character. The pseudo 007, all his little tricks. Now, you only want to have
them work.
They sort of work. I mean, Pincers of Power worked. He saved himself in the pitfall. And now my only problem is, where is the boxing glove hiding for 90% of that movie?
It's hidden in that box in his chest. He's got it flat.
No, boxing glove. The boxing glove that he pushes, and the boxing glove when the punch.
When he punches the Fratelli when they're playing the piano or the organ.
Yeah, but it's on the side. It's a full-on boxing glove, though. Where is that?
With the spring. There's a spring inside the glove. And so it can be flat. You got to compress.
I don't know, but if we
none of it really makes sense. But
I know
is enough of a justification that it fits in with a mouse on a mouth on a spring saving his life.
I know.
We can accept that crunched up spring.
I'm just you don't look at this stuff when you're a kid, but you look at it now and it's like, wait a minute. I mean, I get the slick shoes. I get that one. That one works. I do get the lights. I get the pitches of power.
The
boxing glove.
The dart doesn't work for me. There's no way it's got enough suction on that little tip he's got to pull him into the barrel or pull himself towards the gun at the end.
Well, that was
Yeah, but here's the thing, Krista, Jed and I talk about setup and payoff in this movie, in these all the time. We say there's setup and payoff all over this thing, all over the place. It's great. It makes it feel worth it. I mean, Data's inventions, all set up, they're all used, all paid off.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Data completely defined. Data's kind of comic relief, I think.
They all are.
Yeah.
I don't know.
a single character
Brand isn't comic relief. Brand's your big brother alpha male.
He has some like with the little pink bicycle he rides around on.
Okay,
and then he gets sent flying off the cliff.
I'll get
dragged him along the road.
I'll give you that one.
He gets and then like wrapped up. He's like, "You gotta start working out like a normal person, son."
That's him being the straight man surrounded by morons.
Yeah,
Mom, I'm trapped. Help me. Oh, you silly boy with your exercises.
They call it gymming these days from The Office, where you need someone in a comedy to act normal to ground the shenanigans. And so it seems like he operates as that. He's still a comedic role, but his reactions are in themselves comedic, even if they're just like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. And so Brand is the straight man, essentially. And of course, he's the protector. And even though he gives Mikey shit, there's still those good brother moments throughout the whole movie. And it warms up. And of course, he's also trying to romance Andy, and Andy's thirsty.
Oh man,
hella
Andy
thirsty.
is she is thirsty, and
I think there's a hole. I think Brand was standing in it.
That when I was a kid, that was one of my favorite scenes because it was telling you, hey man, the older chicks, if you work hard, they'll kiss you,
and if you trick them on accident,
that was what. But and then Mikey. Then there's Mikey. The eternal optimism of Mikey is what makes Mikey a likable character.
Goonies never say die.
Goonies never say die. Goonies make mistakes, just don't make any more of them. And so there's our cast. Then you have Andy and Steph, who aren't Goonies but are then honorary Goonies. And there's our core unit that goes through this adventure. And what would you guys say? How do you like the flow of the adventure? From getting to the diner, getting into the underground. How does that feel for you guys?
Me or you, Jed?
Go ahead.
How does it feel for me? I mean, I think it's great. The way I really love the way that they tell the story. How, as you mentioned, how every single character has their own little personality and how that grows towards the end. And I do love the way that they did it, where they start from point A to like point Z, because they follow like the map, and it's great the way that they did it. I think it's a 10 out of 10.
Because again, Spielberg did some good writing here. He set up all the points, and they make it. It's that clean divide. You have Act 1, the setup. We're in trouble. Here's our problem, and here's the solution. Act 2, let's start the adventure. And then Act 2 and Act 3, Jed, it kind of bleeds together because of the position of the movie. I feel like Act 3 really begins after the first booby trap or booty trap, however you want to say it.
It's what I said.
But then it's clear. Then it's the push, and then of course there is the constant threat of the Fratellis. So the movie not only has a clear beginning and a clear path to an ending, get to One-Eyed Willie and the treasure, but there's the clear momentum of you're being hunted by people who are going to kill you. And it allows for believability, even though there is you have to stretch your imagination a few times here and there, but it still allows you, the escapism isn't broken. The suspension of disbelief is still there, despite the stuff happening. And it flows nicely. Jed, one of the biggest things from my memory as a kid, and one of the highlights are the booby traps. How do you feel about the booby traps?
I think the booby traps are pretty good. They're very inventive and complicated, and it's framed interesting. I always point to the beginning of the movie with how they open the gate for Chung. Is these people are familiar with how these crazy over-the-top contraptions work because they've designed a bunch of them themselves. So it's kind of an interesting comparison between that and the booby traps, but it helps the pacing. I feel like if there weren't any booby traps or they're just very generic ones, this movie wouldn't be what it is. A lot of people remember playing a freaking bone piano.
That's the best one.
That's
bone organ. Yeah.
Like that's just so memorable as a kid. And if the whole thing had just been, a little bridge or stuff like that, I think it would have been very uneventful as a story. The one problem I do have with the booby traps is actually probably the first one they come across, where they find the body of the guy from the 30s.
Yeah.
Because when Mikey picks up the tripwire and sets it off, it sets them all off. All those big stones hanging, but somehow this guy only set off the one that killed him.
It's to me that is the lamest of the traps because you kind of see those stones coming a mile away. They're all hanging there.
It's very clearly visible, and I would definitely prefer that to the pipes. As much as I love the pipe scene, I just don't. It strains credulity for me a little bit too much. It takes it a little too far with me. How they're able to interact with it.
That's pure comedy. That is
so far away from everything else. Like the diner is shown to be in the middle of nowhere, and more importantly, the luck, the contrivance that they bust.
It blows open the hole. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to log on to that.
Coincidences like that. It needed to have some sort of barrier there if they were going to have a pipe scene, because why didn't the construction workers who installed the pipes see this weird tunnel going? So there had to be a blockage somehow, but I wish there had been something maybe map-oriented or clue-oriented to help them figure out how to get through, but it's just, oh, let's bang these pipes. Oh, wow, the one we broke the wall in exactly the way we needed to. So it does stretch.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew that was because
hilarious. I love especially Troy getting blasted off the
Daddy. My only again that I have my problems with that scene are what you just said. It's like watching it with a critiquing eye. Okay, that's whatever. It's coincidence, but story had to. That's how they have to move forward. My point is again, you know how I like to harp on time passage.
Yep.
How long were they in those tunnels to get that far? At that point. I mean, that's my thing is how long were they walking? And I just that was my question yesterday.
It's not implied to be very long because the Chunk interrogation scene is getting overlaid with it. And it doesn't last long.
That's my same thing. That's one of the only times in the movie that I have a problem with the editing. I don't like the jumping back and forth. That Chunk scene is one of my favorite scenes. Because we used to, again, I'm gonna talk about this, and that is one of those comedy scenes that we used to reenact as kids. Or the last part of it about the vomiting in the theater. Yep.
When they were about to like blend his fingers, that really traumatized me as a kid. Oh gosh.
Tomatoes?
Yeah, the tomatoes, and they were putting his hand in there. Ugh. Just traumatized me.
And then it asks you that means Chunk and Sloth, they beat feet to get all the way through the whole thing. When they started, so they had to catch up fast.
I always imagined this scene in the movie is when they got to that log that they had to cross, and it's all slippery now, is that Sloth put Chunk on his shoulders and just waded through the water. That's how I always imagined that.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, that's how that went. I wish we would have seen it.
Maybe there's a scene out there with that. Who knows?
It doesn't seem to imply that it's terribly far, like the length of the tunnels.
Yeah,
like it does take them a little bit, but just
they get all the way to the coastline by the end, because when the ship emerges,
you can see the coastline from the
diner. You're right.
It's on a cliff overlooking the water, so they probably went parallel with the cliffs for a little while and came.
Good point. I'll give you that.
And that is another thing that I have a little bit of an issue with contrivance-wise is the entrance that the map is referring to has a diner on top of it that is concealed by a fireplace. How did all that work when the diner was clearly made 300 years after the treasure was buried?
Yeah, there's again, I ask questions. You telling me nobody, when they built those pipes, not accidentally knocked down that wall and found that cavern? You tell me when they were doing that?
Yeah, there's a lot of contrivances. As much as I love this movie, it's not tight.
This was a movie made for young audiences. Let's be honest. It was not. But we can enjoy this adults.
Mature stuff like the blending up of the hand, the swearing's quite mature.
Shit. Oh, they say shit a whole lot in this movie.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But back then,
what was
PG
this rated?
something very different. It's PG.
It's PG? Yeah, okay.
PG-13 wasn't created until I believe 93. And so there's
Even
actually
I didn't know that. Okay.
There are PG rated movies I've seen from the 80s that have several F words in them. And that was just the rating back then. It was.
I don't remember. Wow, you'd have to point this out.
Yeah, it was a tank movie that I saw that I remember being the most specific. It's like, this is PG, but there's 3 F words in it. And
I mean,
I could look it up, but yeah, that shocked me as a kid.
The worst one it turns out because I got in trouble for it, was when I first saw Weird Science, and at the end, at the very end, one of the evil road warrior chicks is laughing, and one of the characters goes, "Shut up, bitch," and then I called a girl a bitch on the bus a short time later, not knowing even what the word meant, just it was an insult to a girl, and that was, I believe, PG-13 because of the sexuality in that one. But then I was watching the movie one night with my mom, and I'd scenes coming up, and I'm going like this because I know what's going to happen. Because I got, of course, there was a call that I called a girl a bitch on a school bus, and my mom, then the guy goes, "Shut up, bitch," and then I'm going like this. She looks over at me. That's where you heard it.
All right, so it was a decade before I thought. It was 1984, and the movie that I'm referring to is a James Garner movie called Tank, which actually is from the same year, and that's PG, and there were like 3 F words in it.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
I would not have been allowed to watch the movie if my parents had known, but they saw PG, and they're like, "Yeah, it'll be fine."
Yeah, now I believe you're allowed 1 F-bomb in a PG-13. I think that's the rule now.
2, maybe 3, depending on context.
Yeah, but all right, so the movie flows beautifully. The pacing is actually pretty good. You don't feel rushed, you know. And let's talk about the humor. Since Jed's calling this a comedy, I agree it's comedy, but it's for me it's never laugh out loud comedy.
It's inner joke sort of comedy.
That's a good way to put it. It's just like, yeah, I get it. And this is where I'll bring in my stories. For me, it's the slapstick nature of the jokes or the scene jokes that matter. Because when we were young, situational. That's a good word for you. Situational. Some of the jokes. There are several moments that when we were kids, and again, we all watched a certain point when I was a kid, and it carried on through middle school. These jokes were never left. For me, one of them was when they're at the diner, and he goes, "Hey, Mikey, gotta go to the bathroom," and he's pouring the water. I used to try and do that to people all the time when they say they had to go to the bathroom. I was trying to be a young troll. And then, of course, everything sloth. Everything sloth was a joke to us. Hey, you guys, baby Ruth, baby Ruth. Everything was a sloth joke, and that carried on for years. Even when we stopped, and here's the thing, we all stopped watching the movie at certain points, but the joke continued, sloth jokes all the time, to the point where it's shut up, stop doing it. That's how much. So the humor, it's lasting. It made a cultural impact. Baby Ruth sloth, that's cultural impact. And sloth and everything sloth does, cultural impact.
You know, I've never tried a Baby Ruth, but I've always wanted to ever since I saw this film. Because in Canada, we didn't have a Baby Ruth, but I do know that they're here in America, so maybe I'll try one day.
I prefer a Snickers bar.
Snickers bar. I know what Snickers bars are, but it's one of those things where it's like, gosh, if Chunk had one and they must be really good, but who knows? Maybe I just got to try it for myself to see.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is at the very end when Chunk's parents come and meet up with him on the beach, and they're already prepared. It's like, "We got you your favorite pizza." It's like, "Oh my god, I love you guys so much," and they're like eating and kissing and hugging all at the same time. It's like, Chunk makes sense now. Chunk makes sense.
No, I mean, Jed, overall, the humor, it lands for you, obviously.
It
lands for you. The only thing I have a real problem with towards the end is the resolution, or at least how the Fratellis are going to deal with our heroes. They just make them walk the plank.
They do have a sense of humor, and they're weird. I could definitely see, especially with the gun taken out of action.
Yeah,
I can they don't seem like they want to get all bloody all the time. So it makes sense to me.
Well, and that's a really good scene though. They make sure to let you know the gun is gone, that it's fallen below decks. That's something that modern direction and writing seems to forget. How many times have things vanished?
Well, the most important reference that we can bring up for this show is Galadriel's prison wallet dagger.
Ooh, yep. Or one of my favorites, the missing laser dagger from Last Jedi that should have killed Rey.
One.
That's a good one. That just poof. What happened? He didn't drop it.
It was CGI, and they stopped animating it.
Yeah, there you go.
They just forgot to keep animating.
Happens all the time now, and they legitimately, I mean, I think that's both Steven Spielberg making sure in his notes do that, and that's Richard Donner, a first-class director.
Well, they're doing so many things in that moment, like you're referring to. They're telling you where the gun is, how it's getting taken out. They're using situational comedy to do it, and it's built on character. Like, it's not just, oh, we got to get rid of the gun, make something weird happen. Let's just get it out of the way, forget about it. No, they're like, all right, this is a problem. Let's solve it in as creative way as possible that fits with these characters and has an impact on the story and is in line with their personalities. That's what talented writers do. There's always more than one thing going on at a time. And this movie's very good at that.
Now, Jay Fraser 360 brings up a great point. Missed opportunity to make a Goonies animated series. I don't know if it's a missed opportunity because they went a different route. And we were talking about this in pregame a little bit. They made Goonies the NES games. They decided to go full on with taking advantage of that. And this is, I believe, a screen cap from the first one. I didn't know there was a first one. I only ever saw the second one. The second one where we're talking about this, where I told the guys this before we started, where Andy gets turned into a mermaid by Ma Fratelli. And you're Mikey on a quest to save her from, I don't know. It was out, but this is Japan in full power of, we're just going to make a game and it's going to be loosely based on the property. So I think at that time they put all their money in the game idea to make money there as a product, rather than going an animated series. That's just my guess, having been there, because at the time, the cartoons, but you got to remember also, this is the 80s. Unless a cartoon was based on a toy, wasn't happening. Every 80s cartoon was toy based, from G.I. Joe to Transformers, Thundercats, Silverhawks, all of them. It was all
and it's
toy
also
based.
not like today where they need to just milk their movies just to milk them. They just created new stuff.
Yeah. And I'm sure there was Goonies merch.
Yeah.
But I know and this is just firsthand experience, none of us were going out there looking for Goonies merch. Maybe we were going to go to Domino's, maybe we were going to get a Pepsi, maybe get a Baby Ruth. But we're not looking for Goonies backpacks, Goonies lunch boxes, Goonies figures. We weren't interested in Goonies action figures. If anything, I think we would have wanted Data's gadgets. That would have been something we would have been feeling. But this is the 80s. They knew that all kinds of bad things were going to happen if we got our hands on
I don't know if they cared that much. They manufactured lawn darts.
Maybe so. Well, here's the thing. We made our toys dangerous ourselves. We made them even more dangerous back then. Like we modified them to be dangerous. We were not smart. We were dumb. But yeah, so the Goonies thing was interesting. It was, and they tried to market it. So that's why I think we went to the video games rather than the animated route, because they thought that would be the more successful, because the NES has just come out. It's 85, 86. It's the thing. The video game revolution has begun. Look what you can do. This tiny little controller, this little box, not an Atari. It's this thing. I think that's what they're doing. I think that's why they did it. Overall, then, let's see. Jed, do you think of anything else you want to bring up?
I think we can't go that far without talking, as you always love to, the music.
Yeah. Oh, all right. That Cyndi Lauper song played everywhere. That's like an earworm to my generation. It's like, no, stop it. But that was the marketing back then, though. Link songs and promote the song in the movie, promote the movie through the song. And MTV was a thing. Once upon a time, there's a thing called MTV, music television.
MTV's still a thing. They just did their first ever no male music videos nominated for one of their awards. But the thing is, Sam Smith was nominated.
Anyway, yeah. So there was Cyndi Lauper. Honestly, though, all these years, the only track that has ever remained in my head is Data's theme.
That one was great.
That's the one that sticks with me. Everything else for me is kind of forgettable. Outside,
you gotta remember the main theme, though.
Well, isn't that?
No, that's Data's theme. There's
no. I mean, Cyndi Lauper, isn't that the main theme?
I think so. Yeah.
No, there's an actual theme song too.
There is.
Yeah.
The Goonies.
I mean, she says Goonies in her video.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like she's
like they do that for when.
I think she wrote that song specifically for her. The Goonies,
Right, but there's
Yeah.
still like a traditional theme song.
What about Sloth's theme song? It's just a Superman.
Well, I mean, I can't think of it. I'm going over what I watched. The only things that ever stick with me is, of course, Cyndi Lauper and Data's theme, because that means he's about to do something crazy. He's going to unleash a gadget, and it's going to backfire or malfunction or somehow weirdly to the day. But
the bad guys have a theme song as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess they do.
In the beginning.
Okay, Jed, are you talking about the light ditty at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, like during the chasing. I just looked it up. That one is labeled as the Goonies theme.
Okay. Well, you know what? I want to jump back. And again, I'm going to give this to Richard Donner again. That opening sequence with the breaking out of Bob Dobby's character.
Well paced.
It's paced, and it introduces everybody of importance.
And for such a small town, it makes sense. I don't feel like there's any contrivances in everyone being there, and maybe them not seeing it, but
it's a brilliant idea to have it following the car chase, touching everybody in one single way, except for Mikey, because then we end up on Mikey. We end up on Mikey and Brand, because that's where we then begin the movie proper.
Right.
And it always gets me. Chunk pressed up against the window. I'm like, dude, you're wasting your slice of pizza. What are you doing?
Yeah, his what was it? His slushy or something was like exploding in his hand, pressing up against the glass.
And then he cursed like, but dude, you pay attention, your food.
He was too excited.
All right, so there we go.
Setup to pay off just in that scene too. With he's the only one who actually saw it, and nobody believes him, and they keep coming up with references, so the sheriff doesn't believe him
because he's the boy who cried wolf. He's a liar, apparently.
Didn't he say something about Michael Jackson using his bathroom?
Yeah, but his sister did.
Oh yeah, he always changes the story.
Oh yeah, he's a perpetual liar. But I think the more important thing from that intro is setting up the Fratellis, because up until we find the body in their freezer and the puree with the blender scene that Krista was referring to, this scene is what establishes them as antagonists. We see how intelligent they are breaking out of the county jail, how pretending to have committed suicide gets the guard close, doing the ring of gasoline fire, and then using the race on the beach to get away. They're shown as intelligent antagonists and willing to commit great violence. So it sets them up just as well as it does introducing the people they come across. And it's just so neatly done in just the first 5 minutes. I know, all right, these villains, they're intimidating, they're intelligent, and they're ruthless. We get what we need out of them very early on before we, of course, we develop them more. But it's a very good foundation to build the antagonist characters.
And then in the next 10 minutes, because I check it when we're doing this stuff, by 16-minute mark, everybody's been introduced. All character profiles are already in play. You understand what they are, and then the movie can move forward. You're not worrying about introducing everybody at certain moments to make sure we got to get this in there. We got to make sure we mention this, that. No, everything of importance is done in the first 16 minutes of the movie.
It's
so the
quite
movie could just flow.
How quickly and well they establish the characters, just like you said, the setup of the problem and the solution, foreshadowing the end of the movie. Like, so much happens in those first 16 minutes. It's really impressive. I wish a lot of people would take notes.
And I say Richard Donner's one of the reasons. Spielberg as a producer and probably talking shop with Donner about it a lot. And Spielberg did a good job writing it. And again, you've got a good cast that are delivering it very well. All right, with that said, we hit soundtrack. Let's get to the scoring. Krista, as our guest, you may score first out of 10.
I said this earlier, but I rate the movie a 10 out of 10. Love it, and we'll continue watching it. It's just a classic, and it's legendary to me. I love it.
Excellent. Jed, it's your movie. You get to score next.
Yes, and as everybody knows, I'm way harsher on movies than most people. If this were purely a subjective review, I'd give it a 9.5. I love it. Those little critiques aren't enough to take me out of the movie, but there are a lot of contrivances that I think breaks the cohesion of the story, so I have to give it a 6.5 in the end.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of
Wow.
contrivances. Plot progression is a little rough in a lot of instances.
I
The character work is immaculate, but that's what most of the score.
I didn't know my score was going to be higher than yours. I didn't know. Okay.
You should know this by now. I don't give high scores.
Yes, you do if on the right movie. But all right. Well, you were so excited to do this. I thought it was going to be a little. I thought it was going to be higher. All right. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Because one, everything all you guys said, it's an iconic movie. It had lasting cultural impact. It's brilliantly directed by Richard Donner. The cast was spot on, great delivery. It's memorable. You got that goddamn Cyndi Lauper song. It's in my head right now. I can't get rid of it. But I take it off for the things Jed and I talk about, those small inconsistencies. And just for that, maybe because then again, I'm an old fart in this point. I hate it, but I am. Because this was from my era and I grew up through it and then grew out of it and watched others grow out of it, where we cared more about the humor than the movie itself. That's why we talked about it all the time, the humor, but it never made us go back and watch the movie again. So that kind of lowers it and realized its cultural impact to me ends up being more important than the movie, if that makes any sense. But that's why it still gets it the high rating in terms of its quality. And it's a quality movie, even though Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy touched it in some weird, despicable way. Either way, there we go. We are done for another week. It is my choice next week. I have got it down to 2 movies. Jed knows what they are. I will have that announced by Tuesday or Wednesday. And either way, so once again, Krista, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
It was a pleasure. Jed, go cheat on me with everybody else in the house. I don't care anymore. We'll bring Devil back to do marriage counseling somehow. I don't know. Anyway,
the second session after last.
Yeah. Oh, well, it'll be a struggle session this time. He just happened to be there. This time we'll make him stay. Anyway, so thanks again, everybody. Chat, we love you as always. And again, if you're watching live while it's still up or on the replay when it's re-uploaded, we hope you had a good time. Hit that like button, leave a comment, and we will see you next week. Until then, have a good night or day wherever you may be. Good night, everybody.
Chevron 1, encoded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it. Makes it grow.
You failed your hunt. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry havoc, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 encoded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi, and all that killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, love boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.